So today we are going to be reviewing client relationships, toxic relationships, client communication, and intercommunication as a whole, and discuss the types of clients that you have, what you can do about them, and in the end, if you need to, fire your client. We're going to begin our discussion today with Chloe.
Hello. Lots of juicy stuff we can talk about today. Firing a client, not exactly it's definitely not the best conversation starter, but unfortunately true to most business and definitely something to watch out for. Clients and customers, definitely the best and the worst part of the business. Definitely gives you the high and lows as well. But it could probably bring you a lot of joy, a lot of headaches, especially if you're not kind of intentionally curating your customers. At the end of the day, the theme is really quality over quantity, right? You can always have like a great top line revenue because you have these high dollar value or high volume of customers. But, at the end of the day, if 80% of your customer base is stressing you the hell out and your staff, you're probably finding yourself more on a fast track to, a road toward prison rather than freedom at the end. And you start wondering, why the hell did I start doing this anyways?
Yeah, precisely. Precisely. You end up painting yourself into a corner and then you don't know how to get out of it.
Yeah, that is the worst feeling to have, especially when it's your business. Your corner.
Yeah, exactly. So why don't we discuss what the signs of what a good client looks like?
All right. So if we're also lucky, we have plenty of great clients. Usually with these good clients, they're the ones that, have those realistic expectations, right? They're also really great at communicating what their expectations are to you. They're clear. They're also listening to what your expectations are for them. They respect that. They know the value of your service, of the product you're providing. They're also very open to ideas and they kind of value your opinions and knowledge on what you're doing. This one I especially think is true of great clients is that they have the utmost respect of your time. And,
Absolutely.
And lastly, like they take your business seriously. They don't take you for granted. There's definitely a strong respect for your business and for you. And usually that's a great client. And hopefully you really like each other.
Well, I kind of feel like it all goes hand in hand, right? If they are respectful of you, they're respectful of your time, they take your they take your opinions and your knowledge seriously, then you will genuinely like one another. Yeah, and that's kind of where you want to be with your customers, right? I mean, they say like there's a true thing about falling in love with your customers, and that really grows your business, and it also makes you and your company and your staff and your culture feel really good. So that's a great thing to have. Agreed. So, just so that's not always about us, for listeners out there, we can always let's do a little exercise. So this exercise is, giving you a chance to kind of think through your favorite customers. So, take out a pen and pencil and paper. Pen, pencil, paper, whatever you would like, something, crayon, lipstick, whatever the case may be, but write down your favorite client's name and kind of think about, what is the characteristics of that client, write about what's your favorite things about that client that you can think of. Now, of course, if you're listening to us and you're driving, definitely do not take your hands off the wheel. In that case, you can yes, exactly. So in that case, you can definitely just picture the client in your mind and just kind of think through how you would describe them and kind of what patterns or what characteristics you can see in them that actually makes them that great quality client. Well, I tell you what, I also kind of feel like if you are stuck, and this actually kind of, well, yeah, it does. It works with friends. It works with family. When you write down what it is that you want, when you write down the kind of client that you want, you might be stuck with all of your clients being bad clients and you wondering,
what is what is it about me that is attracting this to me? It is good for you to write down, articulate what it is that you really like, and somehow bring that to the forefront of your mind, and you'll always think of it as you bring new clients on to your portfolio.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you might find a pattern that you're having that isn't particularly great. And I like how you kind of brought it back to like family and friends too. But oftentimes, with our business, the tone comes from the top. So if you're attracting people in your life that may not be the best influence on you, if you're doing it in your personal life, most likely you're doing it in your business life as well. And, getting really clear as to what that looks like and who you rather be doing business with will make it a lot easier for you to identify those kind of people you want to attract in the future.
Yeah, so we're going to dive in and we're going to give you guys some examples of these toxic clients. And while we do that, we're also going to share with you what are some keywords that you may hear them say, so that after you've listened to our podcast and you are put in a position where you are with one of these examples, you'll hear something that will raise a red flag to you that this person may either become a toxic client or they already are a toxic client. And we'll give you some ideas as to how you may be able to fix this. In the end, we will help you figure out if it's something that you just can't fix and it's time to fire that client, and what are the best steps for you to take so that you don't completely annihilate that bridge. In saying that, I do want our listeners to better understand that these clients aren't this way because they enjoy it. It's not because of any other reason than someone has let them get away with it. Someone let them get away with more and more and more, and they are now in a place where they have become one of these examples. My favorite is the unrealistic client. And I feel like, especially this time of year, I come across them more and more. It's tax season, and a lot of times they show up. They don't respect your time. They don't respect your work. They don't respect your fees. And they'll have unrealistic standards and high demands. They'll question your ability. Can you do this? Could you do this? And why did you do it this way? I would have done it that way. They could also possibly refuse to pay for service that they don't feel is valuable. That can truly hurt you. What you may hear them say is, I need this done today. I thought you could get this done faster. Why is this costing so much? What I asked for wasn't that big of a request. The best way to fix this is to avoid the mess. Make your terms and conditions crystal clear. If your letter of engagement is 15 pages long, then it's 15 pages long. They need to sign that paper that says, I will not put up with your BS. And once they've signed that, then you can use that in your conversation per our agreement. Or if you'll remember in the letter of engagement, such X, Y, and Z. You have to be extremely clear with these clients of what your expectations are of them. You have to create an ironclad process showing exactly what you're expecting of this client. One of the things that I do is I actually created a workflow process. And in each lane, I have myself in one lane. I have the service provider in another lane. I have the client in another lane. And then whatever that natural progression is, may it be a CPA, a business coach, a financial advisor, or, whatever that next natural progression is of whatever it is that we're doing. And in each lane, it says what I will do and the amount of time that I will do it in, what you will do, and what amount of time you have to do it in. And I tell you what, I underpromise over and over again, because I know that we can do it and we can knock it out of the park, but I'm not going to tell you that, because then you're going to expect me to knock it out of the park every time. I'm going to tell you, I can play baseball. So underpromising and over-delivering will really help stave off that type of client.
Well, I also find with, sorry, go ahead.
No. You also find, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, I also find with these type of clients, the unrealistic ones, they tend to be a little bit of a bully when it comes to the conversation too. So you almost do have to kind of fight for your spot and fight for that clarity when you're talking to them about what the expectation is, because usually they are unrealistic because they've probably gotten that way. Like you said, people have let them kind of go along the way they are, and they're used to getting their way, and they think that their way is right. So they will bully their way into a conversation oftentimes. So it might be hard for you to even lay out the expectations, but you kind of have to put your foot down. And if anything, they'll probably respect you a little bit for putting your foot down, pushing back on them and saying, no, this is what you need to do for this relationship, for this business deal to be a success. And so you just kind of got to buck up and just make sure they hear what you're saying.
Yes. And on the other side of that spectrum is the invisible client. The invisible client probably is just as annoying. They don't say anything at all.
I believe they have a new word for this. It's called ghosting.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is. It's the client that ghosts you. And the worst is when they ghost you when they owe you money. So, they're really bad at communicating. They make it nearly impossible for you to move forward on anything. And when the client communicates, it's usually inconsistent. They have unattainable expectations for your responses, and they will constantly delay projects and services. It turns into a colossal waste of time. And if they're delaying work, they're also delaying cash flow. And sometimes the worst of it is if you are working towards something with someone higher up, that next step person, say, I'm going to use it because it's in my world, taxes. They're not giving you what you need in order for the CPA to file the taxes, but they also won't tell you if you need to file an extension. And you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So it can really cause a lot of stress. And so what you're going to hear from them, those keywords are nothing at all. You're not going to hear anything at all. So, and that right there will be your red flag. So what you can do is if you put in your onboarding process, ask the client how they prefer to communicate and what their usual response time is. And you might even want to ask them, what are some things that are in your process that you don't like? If you put it into their court and have them communicate or articulate that they suck, then you can work off of that. It is clear they've spoken to you about it. You'll have to make the deadlines clear and tell them what's going to happen if that deadline is not met. These type of clients need to know what results look like to inspire them to follow through. Because it's one thing to tell them, if you don't do this, then this terrible thing is going to happen. But it's another thing to tell them, if you do this, then this amazing thing is going to happen. So it's almost like, positive reinforcement for them. You have to make decision making easier and give them two clearly defined things to choose from. Not, hey, what do you want to do next? Or how do you wish to proceed? Because especially if the person already has a hard time articulating themselves and then the things that they need or want, they're not going to be able to answer that. So you'll have to answer it for them. You get just like you would a child. I have these two options. Which of these two options do you want? It'll make it easier for them, and likely they'll communicate with you.
Well, it's probably also just a good thing to just do with anybody. I feel like with clients that are a little difficult, sometimes just giving them scaling down the number of options and just say, hey, here are 2 or 3 options, A, B, and C. Which one would you like? When you start making things easier for them, especially for these invisible clients, since communication is already a challenge. Right. Make it concise, make it to the point, and communicate with them the way they want to be communicated with. Maybe some people are better by texting, some people are better by email, some people are better by phone, whichever the case might be. You can accommodate and you can adjust and, get a hold of them.
Yeah, exactly. And those are things that you could also kind of flesh out in your onboarding process. When you're asking them when you're asking them questions, you can kind of flesh that out then. Another toxic client is the entitled client, which I feel like I'm seeing more and more of. The client I see more and more of them, but I don't take them on, but I see them. So,
tell me more.
Yeah. They're taking more time than they're worth. And this client also feels that they are the only client you have, and they treat your time and your communication as though they are the only shining star in your universe.
I feel like a lot of our listeners are probably nodding their head, and everybody is probably calling to mind an image of somebody they're working with today who feels like they are your sole client, and every important project they have for you must be the only project you have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I tell you what, I definitely fell into this earlier and very, very early on in my career, never again. And I use it as a warning to everyone to not fall into this, because it can make you feel your self-value really makes you feel really low. Some of the things that they're going to say are, I'm not asking for much, or if you could do just this one thing, or I'm going to need you to answer the phone next time I call you on a Saturday morning. And that actually is something that was said to me where I was like, what? Anyway, so in order to fix this, every time this client asks you of something that is outside of your comfort zone, you got to remind them of your terms. You got to have terms. Those terms have to be written in your letter of engagement. Those terms have to be written down somewhere, maybe in your onboarding, whatever. It has to be set in the beginning. And every time that they step outside of that, you have to remind them. And that client needs to know when they're stepping beyond your terms of service. If this client is an older client, this is a sticky situation. Let's say this is a client that's been with you from day one and they have slowly become this entitled client. It's going to be time to renegotiate your contract. You may have to throw in something appealing to have them comply, but you do need to set those terms. They can't just take advantage of you because they've been your client for 10, 20 years.
And some of us pick up those clients in the start of our business.
Yes.
When you're young, you're just starting out. I mean, rather your business is young and starting out. You feel like you have to take on anybody and everybody.
Yes.
And oftentimes you'll pick up one of these clients, which may seemingly seem like they're a good client because they're asking you nicely. Oh, would you please pick up the phone on Saturday?
Yes.
Could you just do this one little thing for me? It's kind of masked in a little bit of kindness, so you say yes to it. But you quickly do realize, and I think everybody does, is when you're starting to get taken advantage of.
Yeah. And what actually happened to me was that I would get little gifts, or I would get treated to lunch, or, whatever it may be. It was like this, I'll give you this thing, I'll throw you this bone, but in order for me to throw this bone to you, you have to work until 2 a.m., whatever it may be. But I figured out very quickly that this person is trying to buy my time and kind of force me into a box I didn't feel comfortable in. And the last one that I will be mentioning is the disorganized client, which, again, I'm experiencing this. Actually, we experienced this. My company just experienced this, and we recently fired a person for being the disorganized client. They cannot make it from point A to point B. You wonder sometimes how they make it through the day. You did brush your teeth, right? Like, it's one of those people that, how do you survive? They're drowning in responsibilities. You know that they are, but they're not going to let go of control long enough to let you do what you need to do. You're like, you almost feel like, why did you call me if you're not going to, why did you call upon me to do the things that you're not willing to let go of? They just won't get out of their own way. Some of the things that you're going to hear is, did I not get that for you? Are you sure? Oh, I know I said I would do X. I just ran out of time. I'll get it to you next week. Oh, can't you do what you need to do without it? I just don't have the time. Or, the one that did it for me was, well, that's something that I normally take care of, so you don't have to worry about that.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. I'm like, well, I kind of do, because what you said is like the core of what I'm supposed to be doing for you. But anyway.
Yeah, I would imagine that you probably spend a lot of time in your inbox emailing this type of client with this kind of characteristic, because you're trying to catch up and follow up and catch up again and remind them to do things and whatnot. And you're going through your inbox to kind of see if they did respond to that or they did not. So their disorganization tends to kind of seep over to your life after a little while as well.
Yeah. So the best ways to fix this is to know that most of the decision making is going to fall on your shoulders. You're going to have to take the reins with this client. And if you don't feel like you can, you're going to just have to cut them out, because if you cannot lead this type of horse, this wild stallion, you're really not going to be able to fix it at all. Clients like this are like this because of their lack of organizational skills. So pull from this client all the things you foresee yourself needing, any kind of contact information, any kind of passwords, any kind of platforms that you need information for, whatever it is that you need. You're going to have to pull that from the jump. And you'll need to know beforehand whether or not you'll have the time to babysit this kind of client. If you don't think you have the kind of time that it's going to take, you're going to have to pass on them. Doesn't matter how lucrative they could potentially be, because they're not going to be lucrative at all.
That's right. Probably a lot of hand-holding in this scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So let's talk about a few more toxic clients we have listed here. There is what we call the boss client. So this is the client that treats you more like an employee than a hired service. They tend to override your recommendations, your processes, and bulldoze your work and probably every conversation you have with them. And a client will keep pushing your line in the sand to get what he or she wants. So, they're kind of just always testing the limits and pushing you just a little bit further, just a little bit farther, just a little bit further, right? So oftentimes with these kind of clients, you'll hear, I won't sign this agreement until you change X, Y, and Z. I must approve the services before accepting your invoice, or I expect you to work on my time. I can't accept your services if you can't answer me when I need you. So probably something along those lines that, we've all heard once or twice before if you happen to cross the paths with this kind of client. So there are a couple of fixes for this, right? Chances are the client will email you at all hours of the night and weekends. For yourself, you probably want to kind of resist the urge to respond and make it clear to what your response times are. So I'm a big fan of this. Certainly with every business has business hours. And if you don't keep it for yourself, because sometimes when you're starting up, you do kind of have that urge to kind of service somebody at all hours of the day and night and whenever it's possible, right? Because any business at that point is probably exciting business, but you kind of want to be careful what precedents you're leaving for yourself in the future, for this client that may be with you for a long time, and certainly for your staff, because your staff may not respond as kindly to being on call on nights and weekends. So this is always a good time to kind of set the rules with your clients to let them know, these are my business hours, and then you yourself needs to discipline yourself so you're not answering emails at night and the weekends. Also make it clear to these clients what your processes are, and don't waver from them no matter how nice of a gesture you think it can be. Ultimately, if you change your process and you make an exception here, kind of think about in the long run, when you can make an exception for this client, what would it look like if you started making exceptions for the next 10 clients, and what would look like if you make exceptions for the next 20 and 50 clients? Can you hold that up? And once you start thinking about it kind of in that scenario and kind of in that predicament, you'll start quickly realizing that changing your process for this one client is not worth it in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point of the I won't sign this agreement unless you change X, Y, or Z, that right there should be your line. No, I can't change it. So I don't think that we're the right company for you.
Yeah, that's definitely a red flag. Now, it does sometimes depend on what they're changing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's minor, but oftentimes I would say in my experience too, 99% of the time, usually when somebody wants to change their agreement, they're trying to change something major.
Yes.
Maybe it's your terms.
Yes.
It's something that's in your process, which already in itself is a bit of a red flag.
Yeah, I had someone who was a very short-lived client where they had to approve each invoice. And I was like, yeah, we're not doing this. You can't approve the work that was done. Like, I don't know how to approve it. Okay, fine, cool. Maybe we're not the right people for you. So
yeah.
you have to be confident enough in yourself to be able to say no.
Yeah, I mean, this might be a little bit of a tangent, but one thing that I know I instilled in my business was I did autopay. I required all the clients to be on autopay because we had a subscription-based kind of service. And it's funny because that's something that a lot of companies in the professional services realm think it's not possible to do autopay. And when I instilled it, I really thought that a lot of my clients, my existing clients, were going to flip out. And so my future clients, and honestly, none of my existing clients really faulted much, but it was actually a great red flag going forward, because there were a couple prospects I had picked up along the way that would go through the negotiation, go through everything. And then when it came to the auto pay, they're like, I don't think we're comfortable with this. Mm-hmm. And our auto pay, of course, is only at term, meaning that it's actually 30 days after we perform the services. So we're already putting in quite a big cushion. And so, for me, that was a red flag, saying, so you're basically telling me you're not going to pay for what you received. Okay, so maybe this is not going to work out, guys. But it did kind of save some heartache, right? Because how much time do we spend in our business chasing down clients for payments? It'd be nice to know ahead of time if you're going to have a client who's going to pay on time. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I will tell you, though, it's also really interesting, too. You'll know how much your client respects you, because when I had this auto pays, I was offering 30 days post-service. And for clients who weren't comfortable, but they respected us and what we did, they would actually come back and say, how about I just pay you ahead of time? I was like, well, even better.
I like that.
I will take that then. Thank you very much. But no, it's good to set boundaries up front. Yes. All right. Another type of these client is the unreasonable client. So this is the client that usually doesn't see any value in your work and will, even worse, nickel dime you for every single task. And then on top of that, they probably won't pay. They'll delay your pay or make it very clear how unhappy they are with your price, your process, and your work, and likely with every invoice you send. So things you'll often hear is, are you sure you took that much amount of time? I just don't see how that happened. Or why am I being charged for this? Or even better, I heard I could get your service for 1/10 of your cost. So why am I paying this much now?
Oh, man, they get on my nerves, but okay.
A little bit of an insult, right? Absolutely. Yes. Because, anybody who goes in business knows that, you're working really hard for your clients. And to hear your clients to say this is a little demoralizing. Yes. So to fix this, what you want to do is you want to be very firm with your terms and conditions. Try to keep away from cost plus pricing. So that's basically a pricing strategy where your selling price is determined by adding a specific amount of markup to each of your product's unit cost. This tends to be at the root of the client's anger with you most of the time. And of course, with these kind of clients too, especially if they're going to go back and forth, hot and cold with you, the best thing you can do for yourself is to keep track of and document everything. Yes. So emails will come really handy in this case. Mm-hmm. Clients will often try to catch you where you don't have proof otherwise. They'll say that, wait, we didn't talk about this. And the best thing you can do is pull out something and says, you signed this on this line.
Or what I do with when I'm put in that position is, and I tell everyone on my staff to do this too. Like, I know it makes it very redundant, and I know sometimes you don't feel comfortable doing this, but even if you just hung up the phone, email them and say, I'm just following up on our conversation, want to make sure I understood you correctly, and then just lay out everything that they said. And when they come back with a, yes, you're right, that's what we talked about, that's what you got them. You got the proof, and now they can't come back to you next week and say, I never said that, because that has happened. That has happened, at least for us. And we're like, well, here are the receipts, my friend. Like, these are the emails that we discussed. So yeah, we did talk about it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes these clients will, because sometimes these clients, this type of client will definitely try and catch you on the phone more so than via email for that very reason.
Oof.
Yeah.
So then we have the indecisive client. I think this one will kind of drive you crazy half the time too. These are the clients, and and oftentimes these are really good people, but it will drive you crazy because they're usually the ones who never seem to be able to make up their mind. And then if they do make up their mind, oftentimes they'll want to change it repeatedly. So here, then there, and then here, then there. And then because of that, you're reacting to what their change is and what they want. And then oftentimes because of that, you keep pivoting for every one of their requests. And then they end up not wanting to pay for the changes that they asked for. Mm-hmm. So things you'll hear from these type of clients is, I'm not sure if I want that. Or maybe we shouldn't do that. Let's change it to this. What do you think about that? Or I don't know if I should hire the service you provide. I hear I don't need it, but some say I do. What do you think about that?
And I love that they would ask, what do you think? Because they don't really care what you think.
Well, I think they have a hard time making up their mind, right? It's almost like they're afraid to kind of commit to one decision. So they almost want to push it on you. And then if you give them an answer and it's not quite the answer they want, they'll feel like you talked them into it. And at least it kind of takes the responsibility off of them, right? Mm-hmm. So it is really difficult to fix a client who can't make a decision. So try to make your process as crystal clear as you can and kind of leave nothing to the imagination, right? So just be precise in what you're saying. Also include examples of what you plan to offer the client along the expected results so they know what their decision could possibly look like, right? So here, again, I think it's also really helpful with indecisive clients, kind of narrow their options. Give them 2 or 3, A, B, C again, and just let them choose. Simplify it for them so they don't have a whole entire array of a box of crayons to choose from. Give them 3 colors and say pick one and go with it, right? It's actually doing you good, but it's also doing them good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But then you try all these things and none of them work. And now you feel like you are at the end of your rope and it's probably time you part ways. But you can't just cut the strings. You have to follow these steps for no other reason than to keep the integrity of your company and your reputation intact. And just know that this isn't just about you. This is about your business. And this is about the ease of Google reviews, Yelp reviews, or any other way that they can annihilate your company. So you have to ask yourself, is this affecting your ego? Is this decision based on your ego? You have to ask yourself that. Like, am I upset because I am personally offended? Or am I upset because they are questioning the integrity of my company? From there, you have to ask yourself, is this ethical? Will firing this client hurt your reputation? Meaning, are you firing them in the middle of a major project? If you're a contractor and you are putting in an addition to the home and you decide that you're going to fire this client, how is this client going to get that major hole in their wall fixed? You have to think about that. Where are you in the project, or where are you with this client? And is it going to make them so upset with you that they're going to hurt your reputation? Next, are you in breach of your contract? You may say, to heck with it, I am done with you. I am no longer going to work with you. Well, does it say in your contract that you're not allowed to do that? You might not even know. You might not even realize that it's in your contract. But you should make sure that whatever it is you're choosing to do isn't going to be in breach of it, because if they figure out that you were in breach, they could come after you legally, and you want to avoid that. So do you also owe them any work? Is this the type of project where you had made promise in your contract of finishing something and you have not finished it? You have to make sure that you are at least complete or can be complete by the end of your relationship. And lastly, you have to ask, have you tried to fix the issues? You can't just fire them just because you don't like them as a person. Maybe one of your staff is working with them. And I've been in that situation where one of my staff might be working with them. And I'm like, if they breathe in the wrong direction, just tell me and they are gone. But then, maybe the staff is like, I don't have a problem with that person. It could be a personality issue. And that has happened to me where I'm like, that person just grates on my nerves, but my staff has a lovely relationship with them. So I have to ask myself, is it a personal thing? Why am I firing them? Have I tried to fix these issues? I've had to ask all of those questions. So
I've had a flip situation, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, where my employees actually was, just with this one client contact, just my gosh. And I can totally understand it and I can completely see why. And it just riled them up. And it got to a point where I think a couple of my employees were starting to save emails just to CYA themselves, because this client would just be, we had this one client contact who was just like passive aggressive.
Yeah.
right? So sometimes we'll come back and say, well, why'd you do this? And then they have to pull out the email that says, you told us
You told us
do
to.
this.
Yeah. See, I'm telling you, you got to keep them receipts. Even if it makes you feel like you're being redundant and you're repeating yourself, it does not matter. Repeat yourself if you have to.
Yeah, so for like that situation, it was a little bit hard for me because it wasn't the executive of the company that was doing this. It was somebody underneath the executive, and that person wasn't directly rude to me when I was present in conversations. So it seems like it was only directed to the staff in the company. And so, that a lot of these questions had to come into play. Is it ethical? Would it be a breach of contract? What would this mean for our reputation? Because it is a personnel issue at the end of the day. And how far are you willing to go to try to fix it? And we did. We tried everything to fix it. I'm sorry to say that eventually we mutually parted ways, if that was kind of the best way of ending the relationship. But we parted on a high note. We finished our obligation. We finished out what we were supposed to do. And then we, helped the client transition on to another provider. Personally, for me, it was more of losing our employees to insanity.
Yeah.
And just stress and unhappiness to a point of saying, and this was a high dollar client too. It was a very high dollar client. They were paying us very good money. But honestly, was it worth the happiness of all my employees, the morale of the team? And ultimately just decided it wasn't, and, ended up having a hard talk with their executive. And, that was the best solution we can come up with.
Which it's interesting that you mentioned pretty much everything that I was going to mention in a checklist before you fire the client. So you did it right. You did it the right way. So our suggestion is you got to give them a heads up. You got to let them know that this is possibly not working out for us, but you know what? I'm not going to leave you high and dry. Maybe you can make it personal. It's not you, it's me.
That good old line. It's really not you. It's just me.
Maybe, we don't have the right bandwidth. Maybe we're not the right company for you, whatever it may be. But if you leave it in that manner, then they're not going to take it as personally, and they'll be more understanding. You also have to keep it confidential, obviously. And then be as polite as you possibly can be. And then also suggest to them, hey, you know what? I'm not going to leave you high and dry. I have some other references that I can send in your direction. And we will work together to transition out of our company to the next company. We will work together with the next person that you choose. Whatever it is, because you know what it's going to do? It's going to make them happy with the segue, and they're going to be less likely to bash you online, because in the end, it does not matter how huge your social media platform is, or how many views you get, or blah, blah, blah. What matters are reviews. People, especially these days, care the most about reviews. So we, with every show, we have some famous example to help anchor you to something that may be more familiar to you, because we can talk all day long about our own experiences, and maybe you can find some things that feel personal to you as well. But it's also important to point out some people who are, in the top, in the upper echelon, that connects what we're talking about to you and your experiences. So I have a famous example of a toxic relationship that it's interesting because I really admire and have admired Clive Davis. Do you know who Clive Davis is?
I do not. No. Who is he?
Okay. So Clive Davis, so first off, the toxic relationship that I'm going to discuss is one between Clive Davis and David Winshaw. Clive Davis, he was super famous during the 80s because he was the discoverer of Whitney Houston. He was by her side until the day she died. Clive Davis was the head of Arista Records, and then he went on to have his own. He left Arista and went on to starting his own label. I can't even begin to tell you how many musicians in the 80s were due to Clive Davis having discovered them. I mean, he was incredible. And at one time, he and David Winshaw were co-leaders of CBS. The relationship became toxic when it was discovered that Clive Davis was regularly using the funds from CBS to develop financial stability in his own personal life, and he was using that money to throw extravagant parties. David Winshaw exposed him for it. But the funny thing is, well, actually, so he exposed him, and everyone was shocked that this illegal activity was happening by somebody as respectable and respected as Clive Davis. But the funny thing is that David Winshaw didn't actually expose him at all. In the end, it was found that he also was engaging in the exact same illegal activity.
Oh my gosh, he just didn't know the other person was doing it too. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Oh. So it really just took one partner turning on the other to expose the criminal acts. Yeah. So David and Clive had a massive falling out. So David blew a whistle on Clive and then didn't realize that in the process that he would be investigated as well and uncovered as being a part of the same parties, the same vacation homes and everything else. What is wrong with you? But
it was gosh. Well, pot meat kettle.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So that I think is probably one of the most famous toxic relationships that maybe not everybody is aware of, but we could go on and on about them. There are so many famous toxic partnerships, but it's really hard to find one, and that one is really a partnership, not so much a toxic business relationship. And to be honest, there's very little to be found.
Well, I think this one shows a good example about how toxicity kind of just seeps into things.
Yes,
right? It's a slow drug. It's a slow poison that kind of seeps into it. It's like drops in your coffee every morning.
Yep. But if you would like to dive a little bit deeper, we do have some books that we can recommend. We'd like to, at the end of each show or near the end of each show, to discuss some books, platforms, apps, anything that helps you go beyond our podcast, right? So, and there aren't a whole lot of books on the subject in and of itself, but there is a lot out there on how to create a company culture. And in all honesty, your company culture is really going to determine the kind of client you bring to you attract into your company in the first place, right? If you have a nondescript culture, if you have a indistinct culture, it really will invite any and every kind of client. So my recommended reading is a book by Alan Willett named Leading the Unleadable. Although the book focuses on people inside of your company, the examples can be applied to clients as well. It's a really great book. I truly enjoyed it and suggest it. I also thoroughly enjoy Toxic Client, Knowing and Avoiding Problem Customers by Garrett Sutton. It shares a lot of the ideas that we shared here, and it dives a little deeper than we can go in a podcast. So I highly suggest that you go get either one of these two from your local library if you can. They're a good starting point in creating the kind of mindset that is going to invite a good client as opposed to a challenging one.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree with you there in a sense that you what you want to do is if you have a great company culture, you'll attract the better clients. It's all intertwined at the end of the day, what you do for your company. And I really do believe that no matter how big of a company you have, whether you know it or not, and I would think you have to be pretty mega sized at some point for this not to be true or as impactful, but tone from the top. Being the owner of the business, who you attract in your life, how you carry on seeps into your culture, and essentially your business will attract those kind of people as well. So on my end, I had I'm recommending a couple books too on really just creating an amazing customer service experience. And again, if you do that too, oftentimes toxic clients will kind of weed themselves out before they even get to you, or you'll create a company that they aspire to hire, and in which case, by default, you tend to change their ways, and they'll be more willing to accommodate what you're asking for because you have such a great company that they are willing and they really want to work with you. So one book on that is Delivering Happiness, A Path to Profits, Passion, and Purpose. This is by the Zappos CEO, Tony Hsieh, who unfortunately passed away, I think last year, if not earlier this year. But that is I think it was last year. think it was like late last year.
Late last year, yeah.
Yeah. Tragic story in the end. But, for many, many years, he was such an advocate for just company culture and employee happiness. And of course, he instilled that in Zappos, which, did amazingly well.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's the other book, which is the Starbucks Experience, the 5 Principles for Turning Ordinary into Extraordinary. That is by Joseph. Oh, I'm going to butcher his last name. Kelly?
Yeah, you got this.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to Joseph out there.
I'm going to say McKelly. Maybe
Kelly?
McKelly or Michelle.
Oh,
I'd say McKelly.
I did not practice this before we came on the podcast. Thank you very much. Please excuse us, all listeners. In any case, the book itself kind of dives into some personalized customer experience that is, really part of this Main Street marketplace now. And again, nobody can deny the culture of customer service when it comes to Starbucks. So yeah, exactly.
I'm not a fan of the coffee, but
I'm not a fan of the coffee too, but I do love going into a Starbucks and getting in the line and eating and just sitting in Starbucks. I'm one of those kids. Bring my laptop and you'll find me in a Starbucks for hours. But ultimately at the end of the day, I believe that when you own a business and you're running a business and you're managing and growing a business, you really you can't control what other people do and who they are. And, that is just the truth when it comes to customers. You can't always pick and choose. And sometimes you may not even know. Oftentimes we have customers that are great in the beginning and then later on they turn out to be super toxic. Mm-hmm. And so you can learn the skills to kind of recognize the good clients from the bad clients and how to deal with the bad clients. But at the end of the day, what you want to do is you want to be able to keep the largest client base possible with the most variety types of clients, right? So I tend to like to cut to the chase, kind of find a common denominator when that can be applied to most situations. Mm-hmm. And to do that, even in this situation, I think you truly kind of have to look inward as the founder of your business. All right, so there's one last book that I want to recommend for us, and it's really all about kind of building yourself up to be able to deal with more types of people who may get on your nerves or on your business nerves, because again, you can't control how other people are, and certainly throughout your life, you'll probably be attracting quite an array of those, of any kind of people. All right, the last book I want to recommend is called The Code of Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lakhiani. And basically what this does is it kind of breaks down a method in which you can kind of build yourself up to be able to handle a lot of different types of people that may come into your world. So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, if you have little kids in a room or whatnot, you may want to cover their ears. About to say a semi-sensitive word. But chapter 9 of this book, what the author is doing is introducing you to a concept of how to be unfuckwithable, right? So what does that mean? So this is a word that's been floating around the internet, and the meaning of it is when you're unfuckwithable, it means that you're truly at peace and in touch with yourself. So nothing anyone says or does will affect you, and no negativity can touch you. And I think this is the ultimate superpower when it comes to working with toxic clients, toxic people in your life, is really if you build yourself up to be able to handle your outer world better because your inner world is at peace, then you really can kind of go head on and face some clients that are more challenging than others with a sense of calmness and confidence. Mm-hmm. And that way, you may have a greater success of being able to attract a larger client base with different types of clients and not have it ruffle your feather too much or your business as well.
Yep. I agree. And when you have when you give off that kind of energy, you're going to receive it, right? You're not, and this is somewhat, well, not completely unrelated, but it's a good thing to keep in mind. I remember many, many, many years ago when I used to work for, I don't know, insert uncle's name here. And I remember we worked in jewelry, and he used to say, why do you think people go to Tiffany's? They could be coming here where it's a whole building full of jewelers.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, but they will choose to go to Tiffany's. Why would they do that when they could buy the same thing here for probably 3 times less? Exact same thing. The reason why is because of the experience. They'll walk into a Tiffany's so that they can have that bag.
Right.
Later, many years later, I brought that point forward to Anthropologie. If you've noticed over the years, Target's clothes look a lot like the Anthropologie's clothing. It's like they're merging into the same company. It's so weird. But you walk into Anthropologie for that experience. Their clothing's very expensive,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, they're like 3 times more than what you probably should be paying for it. But I love it. If I ever can, I will outfit my entire house with that store.
Absolutely. Well, I joke with my daughter, but it's not really a joke. So hopefully no one, like however many years from now when she does get married, hears this. But I've told her that she needs to put on her registry like 2 of everything so that I get the other one. Because you don't have another option. You are only registering at Anthropologie. I don't care if it's your style or not. But anyway. But that's what I'm talking about. And then I think that speaks to that point, is that no one would walk into Anthropologie and have an expectation of paying $10 for a t-shirt, right? You're not walking into an H&M, you're walking into an Anthropologie. Same goes for a Tiffany's. You're not walking in there and haggling them over their prices. You accept it and you walk out of there with the bag, with the experience. And if you can put your company's mindset in that same place where you value your company, but you also value the experience. You can pinpoint the experience you want people to have by being a client of yours. Then you can also funnel that experience a little bit and also filter out all of those people that are not going to appreciate the experience of being with your business. They're going to haggle you. They're going to be one of those toxic clients. So keep that in mind. And while you're keeping that in mind, we would love to have you join us for our next episode, where we're going to be discussing something that I think is very true to right now: how to make working from home work. And I'd like to add an addendum to that: how to make working from home work when your entire family is in the house with you all of the time.
And how to stay
safe. Yeah, it is. It's grating on my nerves. Like, the world cannot open fast enough. So we're going to be discussing how to create a place for your business that is separate from your home, even when both of them exist in the same space. Want to ask a question, leave a comment, or become a sponsor for a future episode of The Business Behind Small Business? Click on the link in the show notes, fill out the form, or email us. Until next time, thanks.